Hi, today I'm going to be reading out of Mark chapter 5, and I'm going to be reading about the story of the demon-possessed man. So this starts in Mark chapter 5, verse 1. I'm just going to read along and kind of stop and tell you some thoughts that I had on this passage. So starting with verse 1, they went across the lake to the region of the Gerasenes. When Jesus got out of the boat, a man with an impure spirit came from the tombs to meet him. This man lived in the tombs, and no one could bind him anymore, not even with a chain, for he had often been chained hand and foot, but he tore the chains apart and broke the irons on his feet. No one was strong enough to subdue him. Night and day, among the tombs in the hills, he would cry out and cut himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from a distance, he ran and fell on his knees in front of him. He shouted at the top of his voice, "What do you want with me, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? In God's name, don't torture me." So what I want to point out here, first of all, is that this man was in really bad shape. He was in horrible shape. Um, he was demon-possessed. He was cutting himself. Well, you heard everything that was wrong with him. So what I noticed here was that the demons recognized Jesus even when the man didn't. So as soon as Jesus got out of the boat and onto the shore, the man came toward him. The demons recognized who Jesus was. The man was out of his mind. He didn't know anything about Jesus. He'd been living in the tombs. I'm sure there weren't people walking into the cemetery talking to him about this man named Jesus that had been roaming the countryside preaching and healing. The man had no clue who Jesus was, but the demons recognized who Jesus was. And so how do we bring that home? Well, I'll tell you this, that we have a spiritual enemy. And a lot of times the issues that we have and the struggles that we go through are because of that spiritual enemy. And your enemy knows who Jesus is. Even if you don't recognize Jesus' power, even if you don't recognize what Jesus can do for you, I promise you, when you're fighting a spiritual war, the enemy knows who Jesus is. So I'll move on. Verse 8, "For Jesus had said to him, 'Come out of this man, you impure spirit.' And then Jesus asked him, 'What is your name?' 'My name is Legion,' he replied, 'for we are many.'" And so that means that the man had a lot of demons in him. It wasn't just one, it was a group of demons. And he begged Jesus again and again not to send them out of the area. A large herd of pigs was feeding on the nearby hillside, and the demons begged Jesus, "Send us among the pigs, allow us to go into them." He gave them permission, and the impure spirits came out and went into the pigs. The herd, about 2,000 in number, rushed down the steep bank into the lake and were drowned. Those tending the pigs ran off and reported this in the town and countryside, and the people went out to see what had happened. When they came to Jesus, they saw the man who had been possessed by the legion of demons, sitting there, dressed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. So let me go back. So when the man moved toward Jesus, what did he do? He didn't start attacking him. He bowed down. And so my point is, when we move toward Jesus, our persecutors lose their power. As the man moved toward Jesus, he bowed down. He didn't attack. So if we move toward Jesus, if we begin to improve our relationship with Jesus, then we'll see that our persecutors begin to lose their power. Our problems don't seem to have the effect that they once did. That's what this story tells us here. And the next thing that I read was that when they came to Jesus, the people came to Jesus, they saw what was going on. They saw this demon-possessed man who had been roaming around the countryside in the cemeteries, cutting himself and breaking chains, just this really scary dude. And what was he doing? He was sitting there in his right mind and in nice clothes. So he was at peace. He was at peace inside, and he looked different on the outside. When Jesus acted in this man's life, it was an inward and an outward change. And we can expect the same kind of thing when Jesus moves in our lives. We should expect that kind of thing. If we're not experiencing inward change and outward change, then maybe we're not allowing Jesus to do his full work in our lives and in our situation. And the other thing is that was the first thing that people saw. the people noticed there was a difference. So if you allow Jesus to move, you're going to feel and see the difference yourself, and also other people around you are going to see that difference in you. The next thing is those who had seen it, they'd seen this whole episode, told the people what had happened to the demon-possessed man, and told about the pigs as well. Then, verse 17, then the people began to plead with Jesus to leave their region. That doesn't make any sense to me. A man who had been terrorizing the countryside is now healed and completely changed, but they're telling Jesus, you got to get out of here. Their focus was, I don't know if they were scared of his power. I don't know if they were mad about the 2,000 pigs being lost. That was a pretty significant amount of property that they lost, so maybe that's what it was. But they failed to see what Jesus had done. And so maybe expect those kinds of things to happen in your life also. When Jesus is making a change in your life, and you have an outward and an inward change, and you're drawing closer to Jesus, people around you, your circle of friends, may not like what they see. They may not like that change. So don't be caught off guard if you are moving this way in your life and you see that happen. And as Jesus was getting into the boat, the man who had been demon-possessed begged to go with him. Jesus didn't let him, but said, go home to your own people and tell them how much the Lord has done for you and how he has had mercy on you. So the man went away and began to tell in the Decapolis how much... got a call. To tell in the Decapolis how much Jesus had done for him, and all the people were amazed. So the final thing that I want to say is that when Jesus moves in your life, it makes you want to serve him even more. This man's life had been changed, and he wanted to go with Jesus and be his servant. Jesus said, no, you're not going with me. You go out by yourself into the town and start preaching, telling people what I did for you. And so that's the end result. When God performs a miracle in your life, when he changes your situation and shows you his power, then you're going to want to tell people about it. You're going to want to serve him even more. So that's it for today.